It's 7:09, and I was trying to get here by around 8 o'clock, but it was a lot closer than I thought, and I decided instead of taking a bus, which I haven't taken yet, didn't know exactly where to get off, I took a tuk-tuk, which only cost me 50 baht, which is less than $2, so no biggie. Anyway, this is the Wat Suthat, where you see the words giant swing right beneath it. Okay, that's where you are. This is the giant swing, absent the swing. Go figure. And here is the beautiful Wat. This is Sunanta Hall, which probably was some little functionary building, but the steps on this are kind of like Tikal or Oyante Tambo. Not quite as high, but pretty high to get up, particularly with the new knee. It's slightly cool right now. It's just ever so slightly, and that's a relative term to the heat that I know is coming later in the morning, particularly with the clouds gone today. It may well be blistering hot. Well, not as giant and mighty as the European cathedrals. These are very beautiful in their own way. They're very beautiful in any way. And there's a certain contrast between, let's call it the restraint of white, and the over-the-top, what you might call in European terms, baroque of the gold at the top. I want to get a little look at the inlay of stone here. This is pretty in rosettes, if you will. Notice the circles. Seen those in the ruins, I think, in Mexico City area, but I think in particular at Teotihuacan. I had to pause and think for a minute because I couldn't get the name to come back up. Once I get in a place here where the names are so totally different, it's even harder for this old brain to remember. But there was a particular significance to the round circles in that culture, and as it probably is here, but I don't know what it is. And since it does not open up, I assume the temple, so I can see the Buddha until 8 o'clock, I'm going to just pan now around to give us a sense of the scope inside here. And then probably just meander around the perimeter where there are many Buddhas and maybe even the famous murals, which I'll look for. Now remember that the multiplicity of Buddhas is important. Here we have two, probably the same sculpturing, but gold for those, and many, it looks like, as we continue our black. What the distinction is, what the ratio of them would be, and what that distinction is, who knows. Elegant statue of a very lithe horse. I'm going to close in on that I couldn't see earlier. There appears to be 3 elephants in silver. I'm caught by the beautiful tree sculpturing, if you will. I wonder if we could do this with any of the trees that we have in Jackson or in North America. Presumably one of the kings. And here's some elephant detail on the top of the base of this light pole. And just notice the second horse, which I'll take a closer look at those in a moment. You can see that at one time the walls were painted probably quite beautifully. It's got what looks like a purple or brown background with light blues and greens. At least that's the colors that remain. But as you can see, it's paint over probably a layer of stucco over a layer of cement over brick. And it's wearing away, particularly at the lower levels where the elements could get at it. Now these Buddhas have either been allowed to lose their either gold or black glaze and become muted in color. In between the Buddhas, I notice pictures embedded in the walls of couples, and perhaps they are royal couples, perhaps their ashes are behind there, as we saw on the wall at the temple yesterday. The detail at the ceiling seems rather simple and perhaps restored, even though the wall, which is more beautiful, has not been. And notice the wall has a ceiling border. How beautiful that would have been when it was original, I suspect, and had great detail. Boxes of drinking water stashed here. I don't know if that's for our use. Doesn't appear to be. I notice a couple of the Buddhas have little gewgaws or tokens that have been left on them. Perhaps people choose certain Buddhas to pay their continuing respects to. Here this interior door has pretty much in reasonably good condition the remains of pictures of two beings that I believe are protectors of the entrances. Just another pan view to get a sense of the different views that I get and perspectives of these roof lines. Particularly interesting with the sun just starting to pop through the haze and humidity of the lower elevations. Here another pair of horses, particularly interesting with the sun backlighting them. Whenever I'm someplace and the heat begins to get overwhelming, or the pain in my back is overwhelming, I'm too lazy to put some pills in myself, I just ask myself, would I rather be doing this, or would I rather be sitting in Jackson or in Arizona trying to find something interesting, predictable, and redundant to do? Isn't this a pretty sight, and particularly early morning without the tourists? Here in the corner, some statuary and some kind of pot, as well as some flower urns. I just saw somebody come out of that door, so I'm going to see if I can't sneak in there too. This will be a rare treat for as long as I can prevail. This has somewhat the feel of some of the European cathedrals. Much larger they are, of course. These murals add a more homey feel, for lack of a better term. The red carpet makes it rich. Whether it was always red, I doubt. It's all marble underneath. Look at the ornate work there. A monk just ushered me forward, so I am. How rare it is to be in here without anybody else, but a monk, no less. These poses are very specific. There are different poses, but they're very specific. Imagine. These don't look like vases, they look like devices covered for protection in cellophane. Now they are. I'm going to focus a little bit on these murals. Not that I understand them, but because they are in fact art, and there are no tourists to obstruct me constantly, plus the continuous babble. These have not been restored and they are deteriorating. Hopefully elaborate pictures have been taken and analysis made so they can be restored someday. Notice what appears to be a Chinaman. Whether these folks above, if their ladies are Chinese, I don't know. And scooting over here, is this one person paying obeisance to the one on the right? And then those guardian monsters, if that's what they are, to the left. And I may be totally mischaracterizing them, for which I apologize. These moments are always worth getting up early. Notice these horses also appear to be more lithe than what we're used to. Rather graphic representations. And you can see here the wall is completely covered. I wonder how many people who are Buddhists who come into these temples have any clue what this is. Or are these murals in some similar to the Bible, in which most of us have little excerpts that we may recall or recognize. We have a vague sense of what the Bible is doing. Here looks to be a lady offering a monk food, which I thought was contrary to practice, but who knows? And perhaps a gathering of ladies on the left and men on the right. I'm going to pan slowly down this door. always a bit mystified by the people who tell me they wouldn't want to live for 200, 300 years or more. Imagine if you had the time to be motivated to invest that time in anything you wanted endlessly. You could learn the Ramayana, or whatever it's pronounced, and gain that much more richness in your life. Here's some detail on an inside door, one of the main doors. I just pan through it slowly. This does not bode well for the fellow on the bottom. Here, a very elaborate altar seat, or at least a, let's call it an audience seat. Probably in use because it has a microphone attached. As in the European churches, I like to pan down through the arches just for the perspective it gives. A sense of depth. Here, a smaller shrine off to the left of the main entrance with its own, I think that's a Buddha, but I don't know for sure. It looks a little bit different. I haven't seen this posture defined before with the hands placed forward like that. Although I've heard what that means, I can't remember now. There's a somewhat close-up view of the detail of this entrance door. And then I'm going to look really closely at the door itself. I believe there are one of these sub-temples, if you will, at each of the corners of this huge pedestal that the temple itself sits on. There you see a Buddha plus perhaps a handmaiden of some sort to the left, with one of her hands raised up and the palm pointing towards the viewer. To me, this kind of detail is always fascinating. Don't know what it means, but the fact that it's here, the fact that it has uniqueness in its stylization. Notice the toes at the back are, I think, almost bird-like, certainly clawed-like. But what this tail is with what look like spikes, flat spikes issuing from it, don't know. And just so we're aware, you can see how this is constructed out of subsequently smaller or larger discs, if you will, or cones, or whatever you want to call those. Here, what I suspect is the back of a guardian of the stairway entrance, and two more guarding that, although their swords or their staffs are at their sides as opposed to on their back. And perhaps those were sword sheaths, I don't know, they look like staffs. And here are a couple of kaki poses. And this is a shrine decorated with just different statues here. Designed to represent a mountain, of course. Here a curious one. Relatively diminutive man against that large, stocky horse or donkey. Here a reclining Buddha, perhaps reading something, but with a monkey perched on his lap, eating bananas, for which people have placed some small bananas. An almost jocular pudgy monk, perhaps, or personage at least, on horseback, although that may be a donkey, I'm not sure. Here perhaps a boy and girl, or a man and woman. What significance, if any, they have, I don't know, but notice the hairstyling. Is that in fact hairstyling, or something else? Wouldn't this be a dramatic light post perched on your front yard? Kind of a close-up view of this horse. I don't know whether they're experimenting or whether this is the remnant of the gilding that might have been on this horse originally. I'm guessing that they may be experimenting, since it looks like they may have treated this spot and then put a couple of squares on just to test it. Again, just another perspective shot. I hadn't noticed earlier the little bells hanging from here. Here we're outside the main temple walled compound. Here I believe the seven-headed cobra that protects the Buddha from rain, and I believe that's perhaps a cobra that he's sitting on. We can see a bit of it if that whole thing is not a cobra. Yes, the whole pedestal is a cobra, perhaps. For some reason this does not have the cobra head there. Donkey or horses pulling carts. No idea what the significance is. These finials look like they're carved of marble, some hard stone. This little Buddha has almost an impish look to his face. And here, this huge building. Were I more knowledgeable or took the time to be so, I could tell you what it is. This is the ordination hall. Here's a monk who may either be wearing his usual garb or may be dressed for a ceremony of some sort. Whether Sunday has any significance to Buddhists or not, I don't know. Of course, the most important building for me is number 24. And if I am here, that means it is way over there. So I will traipse around here. These two statues that are guarding this entrance are interesting because they certainly represent I would guess, a more colonial time period. And these entrance panels are very pretty and protected by glass or plastic. This panel is on the outside of the doorway. These look like they're ceramic inlays, if you will. Aren't these beautiful entryway structures? This would certainly please the Greeks and the Romans, I would think. This area reminds me of a cloister area of cathedrals. These buildings to the left, I believe, are used exclusively by the monks, either as residences or perhaps classrooms, that sort of thing. Being a monk is far beyond my ken. It seems like the end of life rather than the beginning, unless, of course, you're a religious person. And then this may only be the beginning. To me, it's the beginning of the end. What's interesting is the facial look and the pose of these guardians of the gates, if you will, is almost cartoonish. This is certainly a social gathering day. Here, an interesting little interlude of shrine, for lack of a better term, with some cute little statuary in it. I don't see any offerings here, so I'm not sure what its function is. A couple of little merit devices, perhaps. This looks like very elegant furniture, the kind that the family that's here chatting about it now would buy as a family heirloom. Looks like it's all inlaid material. These are old bomb heads, or projectile heads of some sort. These remind me of exquisite eggshells, but they're not. But they're exquisite. Can you believe that this is the way you break apart a cement and rebar tall building? This is one of the klongs that is not navigated, at least not commercially. People just throw their trash in it, unfortunately. So it's a big sewer, but relatively speaking, it's probably a nice place to live alongside of, particularly further away you get from a road. I just came from that direction past that yellow sign which says that's where soy banbat is, or where the monk's bowls are made, but I was a little bit leery when someone rushed out to usher me down that road. Turning completely around, I'm looking at soy banbat, and this is where it's supposed to be. So it appears that the monks take Sunday off, no go figure, and so it's Monday through Saturday, about 10 o'clock. I'll do that when I come back from Chiang Rai. So where I was is here where my thumb is 41, that's Suthat, Wat Suthat, and I'm over here where it says Soy Banbat. I'm right at the corner to the left of that 14 with a dot above it. And now I'll go up to number 40, which is Saket, Wat Saket. Just down the street from where the real monks' bowl making facility is. And I noticed this intersection interpretive sign. On this intersection there once stood a crematorium that the king had put in for second royalty level, but it was not popular with those people, so instead a new one was built down where I'm going to this other Wat Suthat, and it was much more appreciated because it was more beautiful. It had a pavilion, kitchen, theater, puppet theater, firecracker tower, and full equipment for cremation of high rank.